I sat at my kitchen table, phone in hand, staring at the message that broke my heart. "Don't come to my wedding. You're not welcome here." I must have read it a dozen times, each word landing like a slap across my face. How could Sophie, my only daughter, be so cruel? I had poured every ounce of my energy into making her wedding perfect, believing it was a gift of love she'd never forget. But now it felt like all of it meant nothing to her. The kitchen was silent, except for the steady ticking of the old clock on the wall. Each tick seemed to echo how quickly everything had turned upside down. My thoughts wouldn't stop racing. The dress fittings I paid for, the deposits I made for the venue, the hours spent making sure every detail was just right. I gave her everything, and in return, she sent me this. My eyes burned with tears, but I wouldn't let them fall. I wouldn't let her see me broken. I tightened my grip on the phone, my knuckles white with the weight of it all. In that moment, something deep inside me shifted. Yes, I felt betrayed, but under that pain was a flicker of something else, a quiet strength I didn't even know I had. If Sophie could push me away like this, maybe it was time I stopped giving everything away so easily. My heart ached, but I knew I was standing at the edge of a choice I'd never imagined I'd have to make. I found myself lost in memories, each one a reminder of everything I had sacrificed. The late nights I spent comparing color palettes and floral arrangements, the endless phone calls to secure the perfect venue. I remembered Sophie's face lighting up with excitement when I first showed her the dress I bought for her, the one she had dreamed of since she was a little girl. Every step of the way, I thought I was giving her the wedding of her dreams. But now it felt like a dream only I had believed in. As I sat there, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, I realized how much of myself I had poured into that day. My whole life had been about making sure Sophie had everything she needed, even when it meant I had nothing left for myself. My fingers brushed the worn edge of the kitchen table, a reminder of all the meals and memories that had filled this space. I had built a home for her, a life that revolved around her. And yet, here I was, left out of the one day that should have meant everything to us both. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my chest and settle the storm of thoughts swirling in my head. I knew that message would change everything. The hurt was raw, but so was the truth it revealed. I wasn't welcome in her life anymore, at least not on her terms. And maybe, just maybe, that meant it was time to stop pretending everything was okay. My mind was already starting to drift to what I could do next, though I didn't have the answers yet. I couldn't help but wonder how we got here. All those years of love, of laughter and tears, and this was how she chose to repay me. My heart ached at the thought, but there was no room for self-pity anymore. I had spent so long carrying her dreams on my shoulders, making sure nothing ever fell apart. Now, standing at this crossroads, I could finally see that it was time to stop. It was time to let go of what was never mine to hold in the first place. I got up from the table and looked around the kitchen, every corner echoing with memories of the family I had tried so hard to keep together. My eyes fell on the fridge, still covered in photos of Sophie growing up, birthday cakes, family trips, quiet moments we once shared. I touched one of the pictures gently, feeling the weight of everything I'd given, everything I thought we had. But I also felt something else, a growing determination. If she didn't want me at her wedding, fine. But she had no idea just how much of that day still belonged to me. I took another deep breath and let it out slowly. My mind was already moving, already planning. The hurt hadn't disappeared, but it was no longer the only thing I felt. The message she sent me cut deep, but in its wake, it left behind a flicker of strength I hadn't realized was there. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. This story wasn't over. Not for me. I sat at my desk later that night, the weight of that message still lingering like a shadow. But instead of letting it break me, I let it push me forward. My fingers moved over the stack of papers in front of me, contracts, invoices, confirmation emails, each one a reminder of the silent role I played in building Sophie's dream. Every detail of that wedding was secured by me. The venue, the caterer, the flowers that were supposed to grace her aisle. She didn't even realize just how much of it had my name written all over it. As I flipped through the documents, a strange sense of calm settled over me. It was almost like seeing the strings of a puppet show, each line and signature connecting to me, to the choices I had made for her. She might have shut me out, but she couldn't erase the truth. The wedding was only happening because of me. The thought didn't sting like I thought it would. In fact, it felt empowering, like I was finally seeing the reality I had refused to acknowledge for so long. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, letting the soft hum of the night fill the quiet room. I thought about the sacrifices I had made, the years I spent making sure she never had to go without. And yet, when the moment came for her to stand on her own, she chose to turn her back on me. But as I sat there, the realization slowly took hold. If she didn't want me there, then she didn't deserve everything I had given. I felt the first spark of resolve flicker in my chest, ready to burn brighter. I reached for the contract for the venue first, running my finger along the bold letters of my name at the top. It was a stark reminder that every detail of this wedding, every flower, every plate, every note of music, had been made possible by me. The more I looked at those papers, the clearer it all became. Sophie might have thought she could erase me from her day, but she was wrong. I held the power she didn't even realize was there, and for the first time in a long while, I felt no guilt in holding on to it. I remembered the night Sophie first told me about her wedding plans, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she described the grand vision she had. I had been so quick to say yes, to open my checkbook and my heart, without ever stopping to think about what it was costing me. Now those memories felt bittersweet. She had built her dream on my foundation, never questioning who really made it all possible. And if she wanted me gone, then maybe it was time she saw just how much of that dream could crumble without me. I took a slow breath and laid the contracts out in front of me like pieces of a puzzle. The caterer's invoice, the florist's agreement, the band's contract, all in my name, all bound to me. It was almost poetic, really. She might have thought she was in control, but the truth was, she had been dancing on strings I had tied. My hands were shaking a little as I thought about what this meant, but not from fear, from a quiet certainty that the next steps would be mine to decide. I sat there for a moment, tracing each signature with my fingertip, almost like I was holding on to the life I had built for her one last time. But the more I looked, the more I realized that these weren't just papers. They were a reminder of everything I had given her. My time, my energy, my love. And if she couldn't see that, then maybe it was time she saw just how quickly all of it could slip away. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was doing it to reclaim a part of myself I had forgotten. The house was silent around me, but inside, my thoughts were loud and clear. She had chosen to push me out of her life, to tell me I wasn't welcome, so I decided to stop pretending I was. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a calmness wash over me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about balance, about reminding her that love isn't something you can just take for granted, not when it's built on someone else's shoulders. As I gathered the contracts into a neat stack, I felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The power in those papers wasn't just about money or arrangements. It was about the truth they held. The wedding might have been Sophie's dream, but the reality was mine to control. And as I placed the final contract back in the folder, I felt that flicker of resolve from earlier growing stronger. My story wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I didn't cry or second-guess myself. I simply got up, dressed, and went about my morning routine. I made a cup of tea, savoring the warmth of it against my palms, and sat at the kitchen table like I had so many times before. But this time, there was no hesitation. I knew exactly what I had to do. It was almost peaceful, the quiet resolve that had taken root inside me overnight. I picked up my phone and began making the calls, one by one. I spoke with the florist first, explaining calmly that the wedding had been canceled. The woman on the other end sounded shocked, but I didn't let it rattle me. I moved on to the caterer, the photographer, the band, each conversation carefully measured, my voice steady and polite. I didn't need to raise it. The power in my words spoke for itself. It was strange, how each call felt like reclaiming a little piece of myself that I'd lost in all the giving. As I spoke, I could almost see Sophie's perfect day unraveling in my mind. The flowers she'd chosen wilting, the table standing empty, the music that would never play. And yet, I felt no guilt. This wasn't about punishing her. It was about showing her that what she thought was hers had always been mine to begin with. Every phone call felt like a step back toward the woman I used to be, someone who knew her worth, even when no one else did. With each call, I felt the tension that had been building in my chest for weeks begin to loosen. The relief was almost intoxicating, a quiet thrill that came from taking back what was always mine. The florist's soft apology, the caterer's hesitant questions, they didn't matter to me anymore. What mattered was that I was finally making decisions for myself, not for Sophie or anyone else. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what those decisions might mean. I could still see the disappointment that would flicker in Sophie's eyes when she realized what I'd done. But that wasn't my burden to carry anymore. She had shut me out of her day, her life, without a second thought. So why should I keep pretending like I had no choice? Each vendor I called, each contract I canceled, was another piece of her wedding falling away. And another piece of me reclaiming my own story. It was as if the air itself felt different, lighter somehow. I took a break halfway through, stepping outside for a moment to feel the sun on my face. The garden was quiet, birds singing softly as if nothing in the world had changed. I let myself breathe in that calm, knowing that inside me, something had shifted for good. This wasn't an act of spite. It was an act of freedom, and I knew there was no going back from here. As I finished the last of the calls, a wave of calm settled over me. The house felt different, somehow quieter and more alive at the same time. I walked back to the kitchen, my steps steady, my head clear. I thought about everything I had done, every arrangement undone, every plan pulled back into my hands, and felt no regret. Sophie had made her choice, and now I had made mine. She might have thought she was ready for her perfect day, but she was about to see what it really meant to be left out in the cold. I poured myself another cup of tea, letting the steam warm my face as I sat back down at the table. It felt like I was reclaiming this space too, the home I had built with so much care, the life I had poured myself into for so long. I didn't know exactly how Sophie would react, and in that moment I didn't care. I was done living in the shadows of her decisions. For the first time in years, I was choosing my own path, one that didn't revolve around anyone else's happiness but mine. As I sipped my tea, the words of that message played in my mind again. Don't come to my wedding. She thought she was shutting me out. But what she didn't realize was that I was already done giving her everything she thought she deserved. I was done. And as I sat there, a quiet smile played on my lips. This was just the beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for celebration, or at least it should have been. I woke up early, the sunlight streaming through my bedroom window like a quiet reminder of everything I had taken back. I moved through my morning as if it were any other day, making tea, watering the garden, letting the silence of the house wrap around me like a soft blanket. There was no rush, no panic, just the calm certainty that I had done what needed to be done. I imagined Sophie and her groom arriving at the venue, expecting perfection, only to find emptiness. No flowers gracing the aisle, no music filling the air, no table set for the celebration she thought was hers. Part of me wondered if she'd be shocked, if she'd feel the same kind of heartbreak I'd felt when she shut me out. But deep down, I knew it didn't matter. This wasn't about her pain. It was about my peace, and I felt it in every quiet breath I took. As I sat on the porch, tea in hand, I let the morning unfold around me. The birds sang, the garden bloomed, and in the distance, the world carried on as if nothing had changed. But I knew better. I had taken back what was mine, every last thread of that day she thought she owned. And now, all that was left was the final unraveling, the moment she'd realized that everything she thought was hers was already gone. I thought about the venue manager, the caterers, the band, all of them waiting for Sophie's questions, her confusion, her anger. I could almost hear her voice, the same voice that told me I wasn't welcome, now demanding to know why her perfect day had vanished into thin air. But those answers weren't mine to give anymore. The truth was written in the empty rooms, in the quiet halls where music should have played, in the absence of everything she had taken for granted. I didn't feel the need to watch it all unfold, to see her face as it all came crashing down. Instead, I found comfort in the small things, the gentle warmth of the sun on my skin, the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. These were the things that belonged to me, the simple moments that couldn't be stolen or rewritten. They reminded me of the woman I was before all of this, the woman who had given and given until there was nothing left. And now, I was done giving. As I sipped my tea, I felt a quiet sense of relief wash over me. There was no guilt, no regret, only the certainty that I had done what was right for me. Sophie's wedding might have been her dream, but it had been my work, my money, my love that had built it. And when she decided I didn't belong, I made sure she felt the weight of that choice. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming everything I had given away too freely. I imagined her standing there in her white dress, looking around at the emptiness, her dream day dissolving into nothing. And I didn't feel sorry for her. I had spent years apologizing for things that were never my fault, bending over backwards to make everyone else comfortable while my own needs were pushed aside. But not anymore. Today, I let the silence speak for me. And in that silence, I found a strength I hadn't known I possessed. As the hours passed, I stayed in my garden, the gentle clink of my teacup against the saucer, a comforting rhythm. The sun rose higher, the world moved on, and I felt a peace settle over me like a soft blanket. Sophie would have to face her own choices now. She'd see the emptiness she had created, the weight of every decision she'd made. And I had nothing left to prove. I had taken back what was mine, and in doing so, I had taken back a part of myself I thought I had lost forever. I knew that this wasn't the end of the story, not for her, and certainly not for me. But as I sat there, the final pieces of her wedding day slipping away like water through my fingers, I felt a quiet triumph that no one could take from me. I was done with the role of silent supporter. I was done being the one left behind. And as the last echoes of her perfect day faded into nothing, I knew that what came next was mine alone to shape. The days after the wedding felt different, lighter somehow, as if a burden had finally been lifted off my shoulders. I knew Sophie was trying to reach me, her calls coming in one after another, her texts growing more frantic by the hour, but I didn't answer. I didn't feel the need to explain myself or justify what I had done. I had spent so long being the one who fixed everything, who smoothed over the cracks and made sure everyone else was happy. But now, I was done living that way. I spent those days tending to my garden, letting the quiet rhythm of planting and pruning soothe me. Each bloom felt like a small promise to myself, a reminder that life could still be beautiful, even after everything. The smell of fresh earth and the soft hum of bees in the summer air wrapped around me like a comforting embrace. It felt like a new beginning, a quiet triumph that no one else needed to witness to make it real. When I sat down with my tea in the early evening, I thought about how much I had lost and how much I had regained. Sophie's rejection had cut deep, but in the end, it had shown me the truth. I had always been the one holding everything together, and when she told me I wasn't welcome, I finally saw that I didn't need to be. My peace didn't depend on her anymore. I was free. I realized, sitting there in the quiet of my own space, that I didn't have to keep chasing her approval. For so long, I had let her needs become my own, her dreams overshadow my own desires. But now I felt something shift inside me, a gentle, persistent certainty that I was done living for someone else's expectations. It wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about finding my own worth, my own peace, and holding on to it with both hands. I could almost hear her voice on those voicemails, the confusion and hurt in her words, but I didn't feel the weight of them anymore. She would have to come to terms with the choices she made, just as I had. For the first time in my life, I was done explaining myself, done trying to make someone else see my value. I had spent years being the silent supporter in everyone's stories, but this was my story now, and I was ready to live it on my own terms. As the sun began to set, I poured myself another cup of tea and leaned back in my chair, feeling the gentle warmth of the evening air on my face. I thought about everything I had walked away from, not just the wedding, but the years of giving more than I had to give. And in that quiet, I felt a spark of something like joy. A small, steady reminder that I had taken back what was mine, and that was enough. I sat there as the sky shifted from gold to deep blue, feeling the weight of everything I had done settle in my chest. It didn't feel heavy, though. It felt like freedom. I thought about all the years I had spent bending over backwards, about how many times I had swallowed my own feelings to keep the peace. And now, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to explain or apologize. I had given everything, and when they turned me away, I took it all back. My garden was alive with the soft hum of summer, the flowers nodding gently in the evening breeze. I let myself breathe in that calm, the kind that comes from knowing you've done what needed to be done. Sophie's calls would keep coming, her confusion and hurt echoing through the silence between us. But I didn't owe her anything anymore. I had made my peace, and it was enough for me. I didn't need her to understand it. I just needed to know it for myself. As the first stars began to pierce the twilight sky, I closed my eyes and let the quiet wash over me. I thought about all the ways I had tried to hold everything together, and how in the end, the only person I really needed to hold was myself. This was my quiet triumph, my final gift to myself. I had given them everything, and when they threw me away, I took it all back and walked away free.